During this reading, you will experience anxiety, paranoia, and you will feel like you are the one living it while listening to Horror City. Number 1. Let me give you some background on the situation. My name is John. I'm 16 at the time of the event. In the middle of my junior year, I'm from Asian descent and I'm nearsighted, which means I can't see far away, which is like a couple inches away from my face. It all started when I was in my homeroom. I'll call my teacher Miss H, now Mrs. H. She was a young woman in her 30s, but looked much older than she was. She taught history and I have her for second period. So, first period just ended and I'm getting into class. As I walk over to my seat, I see a skinny, black-haired kid sitting there. I ask, "Are you the new kid?" "Yeah, my name's Kyle." "Cool, my name's John. I don't want to seem rude, but you're in my seat. Could you move, please?" He gave me this face that a child makes when you don't give them what they want. He sat up and sat in the seat behind me. He reeked of someone who hasn't showered in a while. I take my seat and class begins. Mrs. H explains that there is a project we have due, and it's on a famous landmark of a purpose. This was a partnered project, and lucky me, I was paired with Kyle. I thought not only was this going to give me a bad grade, but it meant that he had to come over to my house or I had to go over to his house. Obviously, I didn't want someone to come over to my house, nor did I wish to go to his. So I made a stupid decision and I decided to give Kyle my phone number. Everything was alright for the first couple of days. Nothing was creepy besides from the looks he gave me a few days ago, except for one afternoon where me and him just finished writing. We both did 2 pages each and we're going to pick out highlights from both of them and combine them together. This was a couple hours ago. My parents were out for dinner and I was home alone playing some computer games when I heard what sounded like glass shattering from the basement, which was odd because I was on the second floor. And being the coward I am, I decided to pause my game and listen, not sure what to expect. I sat listening for a good 5 minutes before resuming my game. Another minute goes by, and I can hear the door to the basement open. I don't have any pets besides from the cat which was on my bed, so I mute my computer and turn off the monitor, grabbing my phone to dial 911. This was on a landline installed in my room, which was my dad's office for some time. I quickly told the operator the situation and she had dispatched an officer. I hear silent footsteps up the stairs. It felt like forever, which was roughly only 3 minutes. I hear sirens. I never felt so safe in my life. That was until my door slammed open. I couldn't see much, but only a mere silhouette of the figure. The sirens passed my window with enough light for me to see the face of Kyle. He doesn't notice me, but he hides in the closet parallel to me. I have never been so scared in my entire fucking life. His facial expression was the same from when I had told him to move out of my seat. It's roughly 30 seconds of utter darkness, besides some street lights glaring in through the window. The door slams open and the cop rushes, turns on the light and asks me if I'm okay. I scream my fucking lungs out trying to explain he's in the closet while sobbing. He opens the closet and gets attacked immediately, but luckily he tases Kyle. I asked the cops why they arrived so fast on only suspicion, and he told me that the operator said she had heard another phone click after I hung up. I handed in the project a week later because I took some time off of school and stayed at my grandma's house. I got an A. So Kyle, let's never meet again. Side note, I had recently noticed my Facebook had my phone number and address on it. Needless to say, that's probably how Kyle got my address. And without a doubt, I took both of them off and set my profile to private. Number 2. Crazy ex-boyfriend. Okay, so I've been reading for a while and decided I would post something that happened to me a couple years back when I was 14 or 15. I was a sophomore in high school. I skipped a grade in grade school, so I was stuck being the youngest in my class. I was pretty okay for the most part. I'm 4'8", a girl, so I was usually pretty well known in the school anyways. So I make it to my math class, and there's this big-ass Mexican dude sitting in my seat now. I may be small, but I have been known to get in a couple fights throughout junior high and high school. And people have told me that I am pretty scary when I am mad, so I walk up to this dude and say something like, "Dude, you're in my seat." Well, he didn't say anything and he just stared at the desk, so I tapped his shoulder and was like, "Dude, move out then." I realized he was asleep. So I pulled him off. He finally woke up and started flipping out. So when he finally looked up and saw me, he started laughing, and I did too. After hanging out a bit, I ended up dating him for like 2 months. Well, after a bit, he started to be a bit unstable. He would get mad if I didn't text him in the first 5 minutes, and punch shit till he bled from his knuckles. That should have been my first red flag, but nope, it just went over my head. If it wasn't with him, he suspect me of cheating, well, this would have went on for a year. Finally, I said enough and ended it with him. I thought it would end there, but oh no, it was just the start of something more. After a few months, I would get these phone calls at like 2 or 3 a.m., and just him crying and trying to make me take him back, but I just ignored him. But soon, it would start getting the letters sent to my house, but not by mail, like they were taped to my window. Most of them were him telling me of how he loved me so much, and that he missed my hair and how the way it smelled, and it just creeped me the fuck out. Then I would see him on my way to and from school, but I knew he lived on the other side of town, and it was like 6 a.m. when I would walk, so that freaked me out even more. I got to the point where I couldn't sleep, and I would stay up all night and sleep in the library at school. Soon even that wasn't safe. He would go up there and sit in a chair on the other side of the facility and just stare at me. I was honestly just shitting bricks. But one particular night was the last straw. It was close to 3 a.m. and I was in my living room, and the way it's set up, I can see the back door and the front door from my couch. So I'm watching Courage the Cowardly Dog, and I see movement from my left eye. As I turned to stare, there was movement behind the door. Because of the blinds started shaking, and I just sat there in fear. I finally got the courage to get up and turn on the porch light, and that's when I screamed, holy fucking shit. There he was staring at me with the craziest look on his face. I'm at the verge of tears, and then I noticed that he had a black rope and masking tape. So I ran down the hall to my parents' room and started screaming at them. That there is a crazy-ass guy in the backyard. So my dad jumps out of bed and grabs his pistol and beelines for the back door, slides it open and points it at him, screaming at my mom to call the cops. As she does, my dad is telling him that he better stay where he is or he will fire. 30 minutes later, the cops get there and put him in custody and find out that he had a large bow knife and was planning on kidnapping me. He went to jail, and I got a restraining order and changed my numbers, but he would still send me letters because I guess he memorized my home address. But it's been a few months since the last one, so hopefully he gave up and decided to terrify another girl. Number 3. He tried to break in. So about a year ago, my parents and I were offered to stay a week in a friend's cottage in northern Michigan. Of course, we accepted the offer and packed up our things and brought our Great Dane with us. About 5 days into the stay, my parents went a few towns away to hit some bars and have fun. I didn't mind because I like being home alone a lot of the time. At about 12:30, my parents weren't home yet, and my dog started flipping the fuck out. He was running all over the house, growling and barking. Naturally, I'm scared shitless. I grabbed my pocket knife and barricaded the bedroom door. For about 10 minutes, my dog continues barking. When my dog stops barking, I get a call from my parents. They say they're too drunk to drive home and are going to stay in a motel nearby. I don't get a minute of sleep that night. When I decide it's safe enough to get up, I notice something that chilled me to the bone. The screens to my bedrooms were cut. I burst out of my room and see that every screen in the cottage is cut. What I think that happened is some creep decided to break into the cottage through the windows, as he had originally planned. Since I'm careful about security, I made sure those things were locked. After the creep was unsuccessful with the doors, he cut the screens and tried to get in through the window. It had been a hot night, so before my parents left, they turned on the AC and I locked the window. I assumed that he made some sort of noise that woke up my dog, causing my dog to freak out like he did. Then the creep must have left. I called my parents and they called the cops. The cops didn't find any trace of the guy, and as soon as they were down with the investigation, my family and I were out of there. So the guy who tried to break into the cottage while my family was staying there, let's not meet. Number 4. I was always a little difficult girl, or as my mother tells me. Between the ages of 3 and 5, I had a tendency to wander off a lot, particularly at the supermarket. My mother watched me carefully, but every now and then she would turn her head for a moment and I would disappear. Much to her hysteria, usually she would find me a minute later, stuffing my face with chocolate from the shelf, the manager looking on with disapproval. One day she decided to let me wander off, and to see how long it would take me to feel worried. When I realized she was not following, she kept her distance, peering through shells at me as I tottered on. No oblivion. Eventually an old lady approached me and asked where my mother was. Mom waited for me to turn uncertainly. Realized when I was lost, but then in a swift motion the old woman scooped me up in her arms, and my mother's heart sank. She hurried out of her hiding place to approach the woman, calling out, "Excuse me." The woman turned, and with horror, my mom realized it was actually a man dressed as an old lady. He began running to the door, and my mom raced after him, howling like a banshee. This must have freaked him out a bit, because he dropped me and he fled the store. Needless to say, my mom never played games like that again, and I stopped wandering off. I definitely learned my lesson. Hey guys, what's up? It's Mr. Horror. If you guys like that, don't forget to drop a comment, like, and subscribe.